Time now for my daily interview series. It's Money Talks, and my guest is Joe Malinowski. He's the founder of the energy comparison site, The Energy Shop. Now, regular viewers and listeners will know that Joe's often joined us on The Money to give his take on the current energy crisis, helping consumers to beat the squeeze. But today we've decided to spend a bit more time tapping into his expertise. After graduating with a degree in chemistry, Joe worked in the city as an investment analyst before taking the plunge and setting up his own company, Unravel It, in the late 1990s. Along with Uswitch, Unravel It was the UK's first energy comparison site and paved the way for The Energy Shop, which Joe then founded in 2003. He's had 2 decades in the industry, and Joe's encountered challenges from both energy companies and the regulatory authorities, but he remains as determined as ever to help consumers, especially during this difficult time. So here he is, Joe Malinowski, my latest guest on Money Talks. Joe, great to have you in the studio. You've made a big contribution to the show since we began On the Money back in September, so I'm delighted to have a bit more time with you today. Tell us about your company. What is it that you're trying to do?
Well, the Energy Shop is an online price comparison, and back in the day, not so long ago, was also a switching service. So what we actually do is we source data, price data, product data from all the energy companies. We assemble it, collate it, store it in databases, and allow consumers to come into the website or online or via their phones to be able to just input certain elements about their property, where they live, how much energy they use. If this, we make estimates based on industry data, and then it shows them a list of all the available offers in their region for the type of products they're interested in. And in a lot of cases, they will be able to just say if they like the deal, they will be able to fill in a form, and it would be transferred to the energy supplier, who would then pick it up and execute the switch. And in the space of 3 weeks, typically, you would have normally saved yourself £300, or like 20, but that £300 was 20% back in the day, in a matter of moments, just by literally moving from cutting the price of energy by moving from one product with one supplier to a different product with another supplier. Just before we carry on our discussion, let's have a little look at where the Offgem energy price cap has been in recent months. It is, of course, crucial to our discussion. So from October 2021, the cap on the average household bill was raised to £1,277 a year by the Offgem energy regulator, and the cap was increased again at the start of April to £1,970. These are caps on average prices. It's a rise of almost £700 a year, 54%. Affecting 22 million households. And we expect, of course, don't we, Joe, because these price rises, the cap rises, reflect wholesale energy prices, not least wholesale gas prices, which still generates 40 or 50% of our electricity here in the UK. We expect the cap to go up again in October from that, on top of that 54% increase we saw in April. And that October price cap is likely to be announced in August. That's what we expect to happen. What do you expect that price cap to be? Well, there are some scare stories going around the market, and there are scare stories at the moment. They could be as high as £3,000. But as things stand at the
just
current
under
time,
£2,000 at the moment.
But as things stand at the current time, based on where wholesale prices are, and based on what we expect in addition to wholesale prices. So don't forget, every time a supplier goes bust, their customers get taken over by a supplier of last resort. And the credit balances, plus any cost that the new supplier takes on, are guaranteed to be paid back. And that supplier sends a bill to Offgem, Offgem approves it, and the costs then get added back to everybody's bill. So in addition to the wholesale cost, you've got these increased costs of supply failures. Taking all that into consideration, we would expect the price cap to go to above 2,500.
Right.
It's another big
at least
increase.
£500-600 on from where we currently are.
As things stand.
Yeah.
But if the supply situation tightens further, and we found out just yesterday, now with in Ukraine, they're starting to cut off certain supplies from Russia. So whereas we're typically looking at what would Europe do about stopping buying Russian gas, what could the Russians do about cutting off gas as a countermeasure, we now find there's actually a third actor, which is Ukraine in the middle, who is the largest transit network of gas pipelines.
All the gas pipelines
in the world.
Yeah.
Now saying that they're a player, And they could actually force the hand of these two parties by actually slowing down supplies. Now, if we get any disruptions on that side, it could really scare markets, it could spike prices, and the risks are on the upside, I would say, from that.
And I often hear politicians say rather smugly, oh, but we only get 5% of our gas from Russia. That's actually disingenuous, isn't it? Because it's a regional market for gas. And if Germany's paying more for their gas, we're paying more for our gas because we're sort of at the end of the European gas complex, even though most of our gas, or a big chunk of our gas, comes from Norway across the Lagerland pipeline. So it strikes me, as long as there's geopolitical upheaval going on, then gas prices are likely to at least stay high. So you are likely to get an increase in that price cap in August.
Well, yeah, announced in August, to increase in October, almost certainly. I mean, theoretically, it is still possible. Theoretically, the price cap could come down. But practically, that would need, a cessation of the war.
We'd need a big fall in wholesale gas prices pretty soon.
And the conditions that would arise from that is almost impossible to imagine, given what's going on in the war in Ukraine. However, the increase is coming, and it's almost certainly going to be in October. And you're absolutely right. Despite the fact that we are not reliant on Russian supplies, because gas is freely traded in open wholesale markets, the price we pay for that, the price we pay for the gas that goes from other supplies, is affected by the whole thing, and that's what's pushing the price up.
We just saw some pictures there of the North Sea. Obviously, ministers are now giving more licences to drill for both oil and gas in the North Sea. But, of course, that's all way in the long term. That's years away to impact wholesale energy prices now. I mean, it's so difficult, isn't it? We're sitting here, we're trying to analyse the geopolitics of it. We're trying to say where that price cap might go. But viewers and listeners are screaming at their televisions and radio saying, but what do we do? What can we do? Back in the day when there was, lots of competition among these energy providers, a switching service, punters, they were they had power. They could switch, couldn't they? But now
Absolutely.
Prices are going up for everyone. It's almost as if there's no competition anymore. It's just up, 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 and consumers seem powerless.
There is absolutely no competition, and as long as wholesale prices are rising, because the price cap lags where wholesale markets are going, as long as the price cap is on an upward trend, companies at the present time cannot offer prices below the level of the price cap. So we need to see a situation where the price cap has topped out, which might happen in October, it may not.
At the moment, it's a floor rather than a ceiling, isn't it?
Absolutely right. And so consumers are technically protected for short periods of time. But what happens, instead of the energy price, their energy bills going up in small increments so they can see it and maybe do something about it, they basically get hit by these huge step changes, which are extremely painful because sometimes people just don't see them coming.
Yeah.
And, by the time they're 2 or 3 months into it and seeing the direct debits go through the roof, then, of course, they may be already too late. They're getting behind the curve, so to speak. So, when will things change? Well, we need to see a topping out of wholesale prices, and we need to see some stability, because it's not just the theoretically, could companies come back in and offer cheaper products? It's, will they want to when volatility is so high? Because if not only now, if you go into the future and the price cap allows them to offer cheaper product, the point is they might decide they want to take a customer and offer him a £2,000 bill when the price cap is $2,500. The customer says, great.
But what if prices spike again, then...
No, but what if prices then fall to £1,000? Suddenly that company is left holding on to £2,000 worth of energy they've paid for.
I see.
And they've lost the customer. They can only sell it back in the market for £1,000. And so we are now in a risk of, whereas the energy price cap killed half the industry, wholesale prices plus the energy price, killed half the suppliers in the industry on the way up, it could kill a few more on the way down. And that makes it a very, very difficult environment for competition to even think about coming back. So it's going to be tough for consumers for a while yet.
Consumers should obviously check if they're eligible for benefits to help them with their heating bills. They should also call their providers, but we're hearing lots of providers, they're limiting the hours that their helplines are available. What's your experience of the big energy companies, how they're dealing with customers who are ringing up and saying, look, I need a reprieve here, I simply can't pay these bills?
Yeah, well, so the companies are obligated to listen to your claims and make measures available to try and see you through. That doesn't necessarily help because it, again, extends the pain, just like the energy rebates is effectively a loan. So these are just extended payment terms. It's going to be a problem. Companies are clearly facing a huge increase in calls. They expect to see a huge increase in bad debts. That's why you're seeing this uproar from the energy industry, pushing, asking, begging almost for interventions from Rishi Sunak to step in to do something more, because if the pain isn't relieved on consumers from government intervention, it starts to fall on the energy companies. It falls on their bad debts. They've been hit by the energy price cap. They've already lost a ton of money. If they haven't gone bust, they're about to get hit with bad debt. So, it's a mess. It's a mess, and it's not going to get better, certainly in the next 6 months.
Well, look, Joe, we'll carry on covering this story, of course. We'll carry on covering the fact that ministers are now saying to energy companies, why are you overcharging on your direct debits? Why are you using consumers as bank account, as cash machines? But we really appreciate your expertise here on the show, and we look forward to seeing you back on the money sometime soon. Joe Malinowski of the Energy Shop, my latest guest here on Money Talks. Lots of you emailing about today's show. Richard says the present situation has been 3 decades in the making. Yes, a recession's unavoidable. I wouldn't say that. And yes, there will be an emergency budget. I agree. Of course, VAT on energy must go right now. Deborah, there's 100% needs to be an emergency budget, she says. Help's needed for the sick, disabled, pensioners and those out of work. Lots of MPs would agree. Mark says, it just goes to prove lockdowns were huge mistakes, which we'll all have to live with for years. Millions of us will be hurting for a long time. And Daniel, recession isn't always negative, says Daniel. It's just a natural part of the cycle of economics. It's not a bad thing that people are purchasing less services they can no longer afford. Entrepreneurship should be able to cope and provide physical goods that have a real value to the consumer. Thanks for all your emails today. Keep them coming. But that's all we got time for. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back tomorrow